lived his life to help other people. He was the kind of person to give you the shirt off his back, even if he had to borrow it from someone else first.
Eric was energetic. Eric was kind. Eric was brave. Eric's life meant something.
Officer Eric Talley answered a call for help in which he knew people were dying.
Let his legacy be that reminder that we all have the opportunity, the responsibility to do even more for one another, just like he did.
Eric Talley did not do half measures, not as a father, not as a friend, certainly not as a police officer.
He wasn't one to sit on the sidelines either. He never had and he never would.
He liked a good practical joke. He loved Star Wars.
He knew how to play just about every board game ever known to man, and he took pleasure in beating you at them.
Eric Talley was not a statistic. He was not one of 10, just as Ricky Olds was not, nor Denny Stong, nor Lynn Murray. Like everyone we lost last week, he was one of a kind.
And tonight, we honor Officer Eric Talley, the life he lived, and the people he leaves behind.
Denver7 CB Cotton leads our coverage.
Ann and Shannon, we now know more about who Officer Eric Talley was, and we've heard accounts of the bravery that he showed here inside the King Soopers in Boulder. And those who knew him best said today, there's still more we can learn.
On its way to a final resting place, Officer Eric Talley's casket is draped in red, white, and blue. During these hours, Officer Talley's final job is teaching us how to serve others.
He loved others not as he loved himself, but as Christ loved them.
That faith compelling Officer Talley to join the Boulder Police Department in his 40s back in 2010.
Eric didn't need to become a police officer. Before he became a police officer, he had another profession. He was an IT professional, but he felt a higher calling.
Talley's ultimate answer would be his life. After 11 years of service, he was killed after responding first to the King Soopers shooting in Boulder.
And it was love. Love that enabled Officer Talley to do this. He loved his fellow man. He loved strangers he never met.
So strangers, Catholic faith leaders, Boulder police officers, and family friends have shown up with words of love and adoration for Officer Talley.
We are in this together.
And with memories of happier times.
From this point forward, he was only allowed to call me 10 times a shift. That's once an hour.
But even amid the laughter, there will surely be many tears ahead. Governor Jared Polis making a promise to stand alongside Talley's family through it all.
As governor, I speak for the entire state of Colorado when I say that we are here for you.
Officer Talley was always here for us.
Final hails for 295, Officer Eric Talley. End of watch, March 22nd, 2021.
And now he's here teaching us how to serve others.
Because of his bravery and quick action, dozens of innocent lives were saved. I hope this brings solace to you all in the years ahead.
A day like any other day, Officer Eric Talley put on his badge, put on his uniform, put on his duty belt, not knowing that would be the last time.
Also shared today a poem written by Officer Eric Talley's children back during Christmas of 2019. That poem was titled Unsung Hero. Two of the lines, may God bless and protect you and bring you home each day. Now I want to send things over to my colleague, Ivan Rodriguez. Ivan, you witnessed a procession today for Officer Talley where hundreds gathered to show their support.
CB, and that memorial took place in this church right behind me. During the procession, we saw police and fire departments from all across our state, as well as from Wyoming, Montana, and Utah, all coming together to honor Officer Talley and his family. People started gathering alongside Highway 7 earlier this morning around 8 o'clock. Some carried American flags, others the sadness and disbelief in their hearts just 1 week after the shooting in Boulder. Hundreds of law enforcement and first responder vehicles from across Colorado and surrounding states took part in the procession. When Officer Talley's hearse drove by, officers stood in front of their vehicles and saluted as the procession continued to Flatirons Community Church. People who were watching from the side of the road tell me they wanted to show their respect to Officer Talley and his family.
We've been through so much as a society, and now we have to do this, and people taking the extra time to come out and show this, I think that's really important.
And not even the cold could keep people from coming out this morning. Many, again, standing alongside Highway 7, watching patiently as the procession drove by. Live in Lafayette, Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
Ivan, thank you. CB, thank you as well. Denver 7 viewers have already raised tens of thousands of dollars for the families of those killed last week.
And still more is needed. We have posted a list of reputable organizations taking donations, and you'll find that list on the denverchannel.com. You can also make a $20 donation to the Colorado Healing Fund. You can do that by texting Colorado to the number 20222.
A crack team has been assembled to redraw Colorado's congressional districts. As Denver 7's Megan Lopez reports, they have their work cut out for them.
It might not look like it, but this is a first of its kind meeting in Colorado. For the first time, regular citizens, people like you and me, will be tasked with redrawing the congressional and legislative districts. In the past, it was up to the state legislature.
The last three or four times, they were unable to come to any sort of agreement. And so the Supreme Court of the state ended up drawing those maps.
The goal is to get the politics out of the political process. So after an extensive and sometimes...
So we used a bingo ball machine.
Not so nuanced process, the commissioners were picked.
This is going to be done by a group of people who aren't necessarily, politically savvy.
Now, legislative staff is walking them through the basics, like open meetings rules. Colorado is expected to gain an 8th congressional district, so all of this is a big deal. But there's a wrinkle. The census data the commission needs to redraw the maps was due March 31st. But because of COVID and some delays from the Trump administration,
we are now projecting to get the data September 30th.
And it's not a simple matter of just pushing dates back, especially for those seeking office.
If we change the deadlines for redistricting, that affects the 2022 election cycle. So people don't know what district they're running in.
So the new plan the governor and a bipartisan group of lawmakers are pushing is for the commission to use some preliminary data from a community survey to draw a draft map until they can get the final census data. But whether that's legal is unclear.
We may introduce a bill to clarify it and potentially look to the Supreme Court for guidance.
The hard deadline for redistricting is in December. Between now and then, it will be up to this commission of regular Joes to figure out how to move forward.
We're rolling with it so far because that's kind of what we can do.
Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
A man was killed during an avalanche last week just south of Edwards. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center says the slab was 3 feet deep, 25 feet wide, and 40 feet long. 12 people have died in avalanches this season. That's the most in a single period since the early 90s.
Another 3 Denver businesses have been cited for COVID safety violations. Tarantulas, a dive bar, was hit for having too many customers too close together. GVM Studio and the Gem at Uptown Square Apartments were cited because people weren't wearing masks.
44,000 vaccines were administered in Colorado today. 2.5 million doses have been given to date. If you are eligible and you haven't made an appointment yet or unable to, please keep trying and do it as soon as possible. All Coloradans 16 and up will be allowed to sign up for theirs beginning Friday.
And Red Rocks has been approved to host concerts again. Capacity 2,500 people. The first shows are expected to be announced soon.
After the fire comes the flood, or at least the fear of one. Here again is Ivan Rodriguez.
Living in Colorado's mountains requires resiliency.
For weeks, the Cameron Peak Fire has been a menace to a few. Tonight, it's a problem for millions.
With wildfires becoming more prevalent and dangerous than ever before, Ron Reese says he's learned to live with the risks because the mountain air and the beautiful views can't be beat.
It means everything. It's my dream in life. Life down in town has got this same amount of struggles.
He's owned this property in the mountains west of Loveland for half his life now. He watched as the Cameron Peak Fire inched toward the place he loves most.
Extremely worried. I saw on TV the map, it showed this whole area was burned.
Some of his neighbors down the road weren't so lucky. remnants of their homes are left buried underneath feet of snow, surrounded by charred trees. In total, the U.S. Forest Service says the Cameron Peak fire claimed more than 200 homes, and the road to rebuild is long.
Recovery is going to take years, not months.
After months of fire, this community is now facing a new threat.
Flooding is always a concern after a wildfire. Mother Nature really, just like she impacts what happens during a fire, she really impacts what happens after the fire as well.
The risk of dangerous flooding increases after a wildfire because of burnt trees, debris, and loose soil left behind. The combination of record snowfall and warmer weather is worrisome because if the snow melts too quickly, all that debris comes rushing down. Some of their work is to repair lines firefighters created to contain the fire, study the impact on the soil, and address safety concerns. They're also removing bridges so they don't get washed away if a flood were to happen. After surviving the Cameron Peak fire, Ross is moving all the burnt trees on his property in preparation for spring flooding.
It's burned like 1,200 feet straight up above the campers. I've spent probably 60 hours already working up there, dropping trees, bringing firewood down, and just leaving brush all over the ground so that'll catch his soot as it's coming down then.
He's working around the clock to protect his future.
This is kind of my American dream, you know.
Because regardless of the dangers of life in the high country, Reese will tell you the benefits are still worth the risks. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver7.
The neighbors thought it couldn't get any worse.
It's an issue between neighbors that has now involved the whole community.
The neighbors were wrong.
It's disturbing my peace.
This can't be tolerated.